Lumber just showed up, and of course, it's raining. I was hoping for no rain. Might just have to cover some of the wood up with the tarp. Most of it's pressure treated except for the decking. That's kind of what I'm worried about. So here we go. Okay, so this is phase 2 of building our yurt platform for a 24-foot yurt. Just got the lumber right there, which I covered up because it was raining when it came in. And if you missed part 1, you can go watch that video. But basically in part 1, we did all of these pier blocks, the footers for the yurt platform. So now we're on to the next part where we're going to actually start framing this in. Let me show you on the plans what we're going to do. All right, so here's all of the pier blocks that we set up in the first video. And this is actually a pretty good illustration of what we're doing. I am on a grade just like this. Pier block footers are already in. So now I'm going to cut these 4x4 support beams, and they all need to be cut to a level surface. I originally thought I'm going to do this all with string. I'll figure it out, and I'm doing it by myself. And so I thought, you know what? I could actually really benefit from a laser level. They're expensive. I priced it out for renting. And honestly, if I rent one for a week, it's almost the same cost as just buying one. And I'm like, I'm going to build more yurts. I'm almost certain I will. And I'm going to use the thing around the house. So I went ahead and got one. I'll show you what I got. All right, here is the level. And I went ahead and mounted this to my camera tripod. And it is a Bosch GLL 300-42G. I'm going to be using the horizontal laser feature, which is 360-degree laser. And the nice thing is I've got this little receiver here. And the receiver, even though we're in broad daylight and I couldn't see the laser with my eyes, when this gets up to where it hits the laser, it tells you higher, higher, lower, higher, and then you finally mark the spot. So I'm going to use this in combination with this, and we're going to start marking those 4x4s. I don't know if you can tell the level, the grade of this. But it is higher here, lower here. I thought I am going to have to crawl under here. I've got a bunch of, work to do with plumbing and electrical and everything else. So I wanted at least 18 inches at the highest, or at least the lowest clearance to be 18 inches so I can crawl under there. And I measured it out. This is the highest one up on the hill. So it'll be 18-inch clearance there. And then as you go down, it's going to end up being about 3.5 feet of clearance over there. So once I'm into that region, I'm definitely going to need to do some bracing, probably with 2x4s or something when the time comes, just to make sure that that's braced up and nice and stable. Okay, let's get going. So here's the method. I've done a couple already. A little tricky doing it by yourself. Put the the 4x4 in there, and then basically we've got our laser level there. The receiver is here, and once it gets right to where the beam is, it tells you to go up or down. And it's really sensitive, but there's the line. You saw the line. And so then I'll make a mark right there, and that's where I'll cut it. All right, check it out. That was actually super simple and fast. I would have had such a hard time doing this with string. Brought out the level too, and I've been checking, and it's on the level, man. This is really cool. That laser level is pretty cool too, I gotta say. Well, we've had a small setback here. I had a buddy meet me out here yesterday to help start building this thing, and we went ahead and unwrapped all of the lumber that they dropped off, and it was only the decking, the tongue and groove decking. We're like, where are the 2x6s and the 4x6s? So I called the company, and turns out they had dropped those off at some other site and they don't even know where it went. So I'm gonna ask them to come back out here and give us the lumber that they forgot. So hopefully that won't take too long. All right, after a short delay, we are back on track. Now it's time to put up these beams. Nice thing about the plans they gave me is it tells you exactly where to put which beams of which length. They even give you a whole part list in here, so it actually takes all the pain out of everything. So let's get going. All right, that wasn't too bad. You know, these adjustable brackets that I bought for the pier blocks can go up and down a little bit. I'm really glad I bought them. This was almost perfectly level, but one of the bars, one of the support beams is a little smidgy higher than the others. So I was able to adjust that down just a hair so it's lining up with the others. So that was a worthwhile investment. The other thing I wanted to mention is I am using pressure treated wood. There's a reason for that. I am in the Pacific Northwest, Washington State. It is raining 9 months of the year, and when it's not raining, it's still very humid with this constant layer of moisture in the air. Everything is always wet. Right now it's summer and it's 96 degrees, but usually this isn't our weather. So I thought pressure treated wood would be a really good way to go. Even though it's not in direct contact with the ground, it's still going to be wet and get moldy and break down. So pressure treated wood's the way to go. All right, I'm going to take a break and we're going to resume tomorrow. All right, so now we are using these little bracer sticks to make sure that all of these are perfectly vertical, because they flip and flop quite a bit right now. And we're also establishing the dead center of the circle here, and we ran a tape measure out, 12 foot. And we're noticing that not all of these are perfectly at the 12-foot mark from the dead center, which they should be. Some are fudged a little this way, a little bit this way, mostly by less than an inch. But that does need to get corrected. So we're going to make a few small corrections. If you're doing this project yourself, do this before you install the beams. Make sure that everything is going to have, when you get to 12 feet from the dead center, that you've got clearance. So you're not going to clip it, or that it's not going to be too short. All right, tape measure is run from the center point. None of these should be longer than 12 feet. So we go all around the circle. 12-foot center there at the very end is okay. Cleared it. Cleared it. Looking good. Looking good everywhere. Well, it's the weekend and we've got a rain delay. I don't know if you can tell, but it's raining pretty good out there right now. And I could work in the rain. I might actually a little bit if it slows down, but it's mid-August and fall's a-coming. And when fall comes, the darkness and the wetness comes. So I need to finish this project before that happens, especially since I'm putting in that tongue and groove flooring, which I really don't want to have to install in the rain. That would be a terrible idea, especially before it gets sealed and stuff. So let me show you what we're going to do next when the rain stops. All right, so these are 2x6 block boards here, and they're calling that perimeter blocking. So that just needs to go around the entire outside of the yurt. And then after I finish that, I'm going to install some of that foam insulation on all of this, and that needs to be about 1 inch below the actual flooring to create a little boundary there. So those are the next two steps in this process, and then after that, I think we'll be on to installing the tongue and groove flooring. Not good. I'm not sure how much I'm actually going to get done today. All right, yesterday was mostly a wash due to the rain, but I did get about 2 hours there towards the end where it stopped, and I ran out and did some of the perimeter blocking, the 2x6s. I'll show you those in a sec. So yeah, today I'm going to finish up that portion of the project and also do some prep for the foam insulation, which we're going to install here. So here we go. All right, so here's an idea of the perimeter blocking that I did yesterday. Everything has to be on the inside. It cannot be on the outside, because remember, this is 12 feet from the center, and just beyond this is going to be the cut for the whole circle. So this hangs out past the 12-foot mark from the center. We're gonna run into problems. So all of this blocking needs to be on the inside of those points, 12-foot points. Also, got this going for the very end. This has to be exactly 24 feet from its equivalent on the other side. That took me a little while. Also, I'm not a carpenter, as you can probably tell. I've done some home improvement projects because I'm a middle-aged guy who's owned homes. So I have basic skills, handyman skills, but measuring things like this, like especially like how do you cut a 65-degree angle in a 2x6, I had to kind of figure out how to build a jig for my miter saw so I could do that. But all learning process, and it's been fun and educational. So I'm going to finish out these perimeter blocks today and then prepare for the foam insulation. Here's the method I've been using to cut the angles for the perimeter blocking. So first you get your 2x6 and I lay it out exactly where I want it to be. And then I already did this, but just for the video, I make a mark here, make a mark here, and then flip it over. Find where that angle goes, make the mark here, and that's where the blade's actually going to cut from the miter saw. And then we need to know what angle to set the miter saw at. So speed square goes here, the point goes to the point, there, tip, and then you kind of figure out, it's hard with one hand here, but it's about a 46 degree. And the interesting thing is my miter saw doesn't go past 46 degrees, so it's actually a good angle. So then we lay out our 2x6 miter saw down to, look at that, it like maxes out right around 46. So very fortunate, and that's why that 65-degree angle was a challenge and I had to build a jig for it, but lucked out with this one. My blade is a little dull. Time to replace. And then check it for the fit and clamp it into place and screw it in. Not too hard. And here is my jig that I built. I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but this is the way I figured out how to do it, you know. So I need to cut a 65-degree angle here. And obviously the miter saw doesn't go to 65 degrees. So I built this little 90-degree jig, clamped it in place. And since we've got the 90, I just, I need 65. So what's the difference? 25 degrees. So that's how that's going to work. And that blade will come down and cut right through there to give me the 65-degree angle I need. And so there it is in place after cutting that 65-degree angle. I had to mark on here. This is exactly the 24-foot point from the counterpart on the other side. And I had to make sure that this was vertical, which is why these are in place. Now, the downside of these little guys is they do wiggle a little bit. The upside is you can adjust, so it's worth it. But that's essentially what I'm doing. So seems to be working. I didn't come right off the very edge. I don't know if that's a mistake, but the angle just got insane as I got all the way out there. It's just going to be a bit of flooring that overhangs that. I'm hoping that's going to be okay. So I'm going with it. We'll see what my buddy James says when he shows up. He might be like, you need to redo that whole thing. And then I'll smack my head and we'll do it, but we'll see. All right, I think the frame is essentially done. Don't know yet if I'm going to need bracing. I mean, these seem to be holding it in place pretty good. And when the flooring's on, we may not need the bracing, but we'll get up there and we'll wiggle when it's all done and see if it needs any bracing, because I've got what I need to do that if the need calls for it. So final step for this project in this second phase is to get some foam insulation in here. I'm going to go pick that up now. I was thinking of putting in these little strip boards, screwing them in place so the foam can sit on that, and then once that's in place, I can seal up any cracks with this gap and crack great stuff sealer. So that'll keep the bugs and stuff from crawling up in there. All right, little cleat strips are all in, looking good. Next step, installation of the insulation. All right, just got back from Home Depot. Picked this up. That's the insulation. That is the 2-inch thick insulation. And if we go over here, it's gonna sit here 2 inches. So I'll have actually 2 inches of clearance between the insulation and the flooring. Should be fine. Woohoo! Holy cow. Bet you didn't know the DeWalt circular saw came in purple. Apparently, so does my hand. Try not to breathe this stuff in. All right, got all of that insulation in. It's looking nice. Can't tell if that's purple or pink. It's Pink Panther, but it's kind of purple, you know? All right, I think that's it for phase 2. We are done. So next step is going to be phase 3, and that is getting the tongue and groove flooring installed on there and the drip edge around the outside and cutting that big circle. And that's going to be an interesting process. All right, thanks for watching, and hope you found this informative.